Hi, everybody. I'm going to put these in for clearer audio. So if anybody is available and able to say whether they can hear me clearly, that would be awesome. Okay, so we just lost some people. Not sure what happened. Did I scare them coming on? I'll just give it a couple of minutes before see if there's anybody else joining us. So I just did a reminder on Facebook and LinkedIn, but I just did it at the last minute, so I probably waited a little long, but I see a few more have joined us. That's awesome. And we'll give it a start in just 1 minute. Anybody eating lunch while they're watching the live stream about eating? Okay, so I think we'll get going because we'll just do a bit of an intro, and if somebody misses it, I think we'll be okay. Thanks to everybody for joining me today. This is officially my first live stream, so a little bit nervous about that, I will admit, but I'm excited to do it and hoping for comments and questions along the way. And if I do miss any questions along the way, I will try and revisit them at the end, or you can post them again. But don't hesitate to try and throw me a question if need be along the way, because sometimes it works well to address it while we're on the topic. And also it's sometimes helps me remember a point I wanted to share. So feel free to throw those in the comments. If anybody wants to throw a hi in the comments to make sure they're working too, that would be awesome. And so yeah, basically we're going to get talking about the battle between good and bad food. And hopefully by the end of it, what I'm hoping happens is that you have a better understanding of what we perceive as bad food, because it actually is doing more for us than we know. So I think by understanding that, we can change our whole perspective on food in general, have a better understanding of why it is what we want to eat, and what our body's trying to do, and how what we're trying to achieve by eating certain things. So the big thing I think we've lost in all of this is just the ability to love food again. And I usually say, let's go back to our ancestors, or even in countries where food isn't as accessible as it is to some of us. I always think of, if they knew what we said and did around food, they'd probably be devastated to hear it, because we have such more negative connotations associated with it. In other words, we wish food didn't tempt us. We wish that it wasn't challenging us all the time. Sometimes we actually have access to too much of it, we feel, and we're always trying to cut that back. So really what we're trying to do is think of how the past generations would have felt knowing that we actually had too much access to food. We had too many opportunities. How exciting it would be for them to be in our time. And so maybe we can turn things around and look at it in a whole new way too. Which brings the big question, and I asked it on Facebook, and I think it actually scared people more than not, because we don't really want to look at it this way. But the question is, if bad food makes us feel good, then is it bad or good? If good food makes us feel bad, is it bad or good? And I really hope at the end of the day that it's not even going to be a yes or no question. You're going to have a completely different answer to it than you would starting this live stream. So, to start it all off, we need to look at food as actually coming from two different sources. So we think of food as the energy that we put in our body and it creates energy in our body. But the truth is, there's the food that we put in our body that creates energy, but as well as the perception of the food before we eat it, and then the perception of the food after we eat it. And really, what happens here, especially with the access to dieting and nutrition information we have now, that many of the foods we eat, even sometimes when we think they're good or we're told they're good, or then the next time we're told they're bad, how we feel after we eat it can really have a bad connotation associated with guilt or frustration that it didn't satisfy our craving or we're not full enough. And so it's interesting to think that food, even before we eat it, can cause a thought and emotion in our body, but it also does after. And all of that plays a really key role in the amount of energy it gives us in our body. So the food itself and the energy it's converted to is one, but as well as all the energy, emotions, and thoughts that come around eating it. So the key one being, obviously, we're meant to love it. At the end of the day, what we need to do is get to a point where every time we eat, we love what we eat, which sounds more challenging than it really is. But obviously, the access to information has us so confused over what's good for us, what's not good for us, that we sometimes don't even know what we think about a food or don't even know how we should feel about having eaten it. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to do better. It's just I don't think we realize where it's getting us, or any of the negative connotations we have with it, or the misbeliefs we might have related to it. So we're going to get back there. We're going to get back to enjoying it. And to just start to get that feeling, I want you to imagine that you don't have access to food just for a day or, a week or something like this, that it's a little more challenging. So, maybe there's some lack of food in the fridge. Maybe you're not sure that you're going to have what you and your kids really want for the next week. Maybe money's a little tight and you're not sure where the grocery funds are going to come from that week, or just for some unknown reason, you just don't have lack to all the foods you'd really like for the near future. So I want you to just kind of feel that for a second. And now I want you to imagine sitting at your table eating the best meal. So this could be anything. It could be your perception of a healthy meal. It could be just what would be a good, feel good, consistent meal. The typical people you would be sitting around the table with eating. Just picture all of that. Picture that plate nice and full of your favorite things. When I do this, I sometimes sort of picture mashed potatoes and steak and maybe some French beans. But you're just sort of picturing that ultimate feel-good meal in front of you. And I want you to imagine that you obviously haven't had food for a little while, and maybe you don't know what's coming in the near future. So I want you to figure how you would look at that plate and start to take a bite. So take, one little fork full of something, and I want you to picture putting it in your mouth and how it would feel to really take in the taste and flavor of that bite. And I'm going to guess, but most people always tell me that that bite is really slow and lingering, and they really feel the sense of what that food gives them when they take that bite. And they actually want to take their time eating this meal. They really want to just enjoy and savor every single bite. And at the end of it, they just feel good. It's a satisfying, relaxing kind of feeling where you just really enjoyed it. It probably took a lot longer than your other meals. You didn't have anything going on around you. You just really took in what that food had to offer. And you just really experienced everything it had to give you. And you're left with nothing but a very good, grateful feeling for having had that meal and everything it had to offer. That is how food is supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to make us feel. That's how we are supposed to experience it. We don't need to have the lack to have that experience. But unfortunately, I think our access to information from all angles has caused us to lose that. And so it's also then caused us to have a misdirection about what would be healthier for us to eat when we're eating what we perceive bad or maybe not in the direction that we want it to be. And that's where we get off track. But I think it comes from all the dieting information, all the nutrition information, all the different techniques and fads and everything that are out there. So it sometimes causes us to miss the enjoyment factor of what we're being given. And really, what it does now is food, an association for food for all of us now just has this level of stress. So even when we're eating good food, we're worrying about what we might want to have after. We're worrying about what we ate earlier that day. We're worrying about if tomorrow we can eat as well as we did this day. And there's just a chronic level of stress associated with everything related to food for all of us. And that's not how it should be. And on that note, I'm just going to back up a little bit here because when we're talking about improving our eating and our health and our nutrition, it's really important that you deal with the stress first. And so when I say this to people, they get it because you know that your digestion is knocked down, your immune system is knocked down, your metabolism is decreased, because what's really happening is when you're in stress mode, your body assumes that it's only there for a short period of time. So it just has to put your body in a system that's best for its survival at that present moment, and then it'll resume all its normal processes once things are back up and operating normally again. The problem is we don't really have a backup and operating normally again because most of the population were operating at a low level chronic stress mode. So the fact of the matter is that we're not digesting our food very well. We're not getting all the vitamins and minerals from it that we should because our digestive processing isn't happening very well. Those foods that are supposed to be immune boosting and building our system and building our metabolism just aren't happening. We're taking the minimum energy we need from that food and almost discarding the rest because we don't have time to process it and deal with it as well as we think as we could. So what I think happens here is that unless we deal with that level of low grade stress, then changes you make in your eating aren't going to see the results that you want because all you're doing is adding to the stress. So what you need to do is start a daily practice. And even if you're wanting to improve your eating, you really should just halt the process, go back to incorporating a really simple daily habitual practice that brings your system down. So when we're in low grade stress, our body doesn't ever get that chance to come down and relax. And so what you're trying to do is get your body used to just even 5 minutes a day where everything's shut off, everything's shut down, and you're just getting your body used to that feeling of not on the go. People will often say to me, oh, I'm not really stressed very much. So I always use a few good examples. And one is just simply, do you ever have the day where you kind of have your list of, I'm going to get this done, this done, this done. And then there's a bit of a high at the end of the day where you're like, I got all these things done. I aced it today. Interestingly enough, that's your low grade stress. If you get up in the morning and you're a young working mom, or you have a really early morning where you got to be go, go, go right from the beginning, then that's the rest of your day. You've set the tone and energy level for the rest of your day. That's operating in low grade stress. When you have a normally daily life cycle and in the evenings you just feel drained and exhausted and you probably want to eat your face off and you don't know why, that's low grade stress. So there's more value in halting the system, going back a few steps, getting that under control before you really change anything else, because that's going to have the biggest impact. You're really trying to get those hormones balanced and under control before you move on to anything else. The other thing I think people need to realize is that changing your eating habits, changing anything, even for the better, causes stress to your body. So any change in what you habitually do has a stress factor. And if you look at evolution and how things change in nature, it's very slow and over time, over a very long amount of time. Now, obviously, we don't want to take that much amount of time, but the idea is that you want it to be slow and cautious enough that almost your body doesn't detect the change. So I know this is hard for people to accept sometime because we're in this because we want to fix a problem and we really want to fix it now. But if you imagine that, a small habit that's done daily for 3 weeks, or sorry, a small practice that's done daily for almost 3 weeks, technically can become a habit. So your body will almost do it unconsciously. It will take no effort. It will do it naturally. So it's actually not adding anything to your stress level. And then you would be set up and equipped to go add another habit. If you put that in a year, you have you have well over a dozen, probably closer to 18 or 20 habits that you've adopted over the year. And those are guaranteed to be permanent changes that you will maintain over time because you've never set up a stress system that might react to it and say it's too much or say it's too hard and reject the practices that you've made. That's what happens when we overdo it and change too much at a time. It really is too much, and our stress factor has gone up too much. Um, and so I think that's where we get caught up a little bit when we talk about, starting a new diet or diet downloads, or so and so told me about this diet. The latest ones have been keto and paleo, and people see results, but what they don't realize that's happening is, think of all the drastic changes you've made by taking somebody else's diet. Really, and there's no two people on the whole face of the planet that are eating the exact same thing. So how could you take someone else's diet and apply it to you, let alone change it overnight? So where I think the ineffectiveness of this is that your body's going to react to it as if it's a major stress factor by making this much change overnight. So it's going to start to reject it. It's going to start to put things in place that make it harder for you to keep it up because it's actually protecting itself. It's protecting itself from that increase in stress. And so that's where we got caught up feeling like we don't have the willpower, we don't have the strength or motivation to do this. That has nothing to do with it. What's happening here is your body is just trying to be careful about what you change. And then when you do apply a diet, it works for a couple of weeks, then you sort of lose the results or you lose the motivation and you change back. Now you just double the stress responses because now you're changing drastically back to where you were before. And the whole time your body was trying to adjust to adopt to the new system. And now it just has to turn around and undo all of that, which it doesn't realize for a length of time in both situations. So you've doubled the energy that you're consuming, you've increased the stress hormones that are being released, and you've really kind of confused the whole system because it's always trying to find a homeostasis, a balance point where it's making the most effective use of everything you put in your body. And so when you're constantly confusing it, constantly changing it, and constantly stressing it, then what is your body doing? Let's think about what happens with stress. Stress is considered to be a danger zone where your body doesn't know when or if it can eat again. So it's going to tell you to hang on to the calories. It's going to tell you to not do those long-term boosting processes that will keep you healthy down the road. So you will pay for that somewhere. But at the end of the day, the last thing we're doing by doing all of this is trying to tell our body to hang on to more calories, right? So that's really where we don't want to be with all of this. And so by taking on someone else's diet, downloading it or reading it from a book or whatever, you're really not taking into consideration, what's going on in your system, your stress level, your hormone balances. It doesn't take into effect how much water you normally drink, how many proteins you're used to, how much exercise you do. All of these things are so drastically different for someone else that by doing that, it's never going to be appropriate. It's almost impossible for it to be even close to appropriate for what you need. That doesn't mean you can't do constant tweaking to your diet, but today we're going to start to understand what our body needs and how to read that so that you will know what those changes are that you have to make. Now, a few quick points. The first one being that the most basic common mistake we're making is when we imagine how we want to change our food. So usually the very first thing people will say is, no more chocolate, no more candy. I'm not having any cake, no pie for me. What you don't realize is your body doesn't understand the negatives. So say that to yourself. Say, I'm not having any more cake. What do you picture in your head? What's the very first strongest visualization you get in your head? Cake. And if it's not, I don't know what other word from that sentence you would take. But truthfully, at the end of the day, all your body visualized was cake. Well, that's your mind now going to send that message to your body. So now both your mind and your body, all they want is cake. So as soon as you tell yourself no more of something, I'm not having something, I'm getting rid of something, that is what your body, your brain is going to visualize and your body is going to desire. So we can't work from there. We have to work from the space where I'm going to eat more of this. I want to have more of this. I want to enjoy more of this. And I'm even going to convince you that that cake is not the worst thing you were having. It was actually serving a really strong purpose in your diet, but you're going to have to hang on a little bit before I give you that message. We're going to save that one for a little later so that I know you stick with us for a little longer. But what you have to realize too is that whenever you feel like you lost willpower, like you just didn't have it to hang on anymore, you're mad at yourself because you didn't eat how you were even for the first few weeks, or you were great the first few days, you lost willpower, there's no such thing. Willpower is your brain trying to control your body. And so when you're constantly trying to send strong messages of not, and that's your willpower, trying to control your body's getting those messages as I want it. And then your brain's just trying to override your body all the time. And so you can see where you've created a battle in the mind and a battle between the body and the mind. And that's not what we're trying to do here. What you're trying to do is actually create a team. So we need to figure out how we know what messages we're sending our body and what messages our body is sending back to our brain, because it's a constant cycle, and how to know what we need to be telling one another and how to be reading when the messages come back so that we know what it is we actually need to be eating. And as complicated as that sounds, it's actually not as tough as we think. But we have to start paying attention to what's going in your body to be able to get there. So you have to actually pay attention to your cravings, which we're always trying to ignore or dismiss. But here's the thing, our cravings are actually our most valuable source of information. They can tell us so much about what's going on in our body, what our body needs, that it's actually shocking how you will understand all of your nutrition needs just by examining how your cravings work. And so a lot of times, I think the most common, craving that people have is they think they're hungry. But at the end of the day, I think we all realize we're really not starving hungry. That's not what's going on. And there's a few things we want to look at first. Now, the most common one, I think it's common knowledge, but often your body will send the signal of hungry when it's dehydrated or wants water. And we're actually lucky that it does that, because when our body is actually dehydrated, it's really hard to get it back to a good level hydration mode. So when you get that sense of hunger, even if you're not sure, and it could be dehydration, it's worth drinking some water, only because you always want to kind of get the dehydration fix before it gets to a level where you've actually thrown off minerals and vitamins levels and the salts, which actually help you maintain the water afterwards. But that's one of the most common reasons you'll have a sense of hunger. And it's never to fill something in our belly. So that's really never what that hunger pain is trying to tell us. And I shouldn't even use the word pain, because it's just a sense of hunger. We usually don't get to that level. But quite often, more often than not, what we're actually feeling is a lack of vitamins and minerals. So our body's sending us that signal of hunger because it's actually lacking it's actually lacking vitamins and minerals that it needs to survive. And so it's really important that your body gets the actual foods that it might need, and not food that it could be required to fill that the vitamins and minerals. So, but then there's a whole nother level, and we've all heard about emotional eating. And I think there's kind of, they say there's sort of three categories of emotional eating. And one sort of loneliness and sadness. And then the next level is kind of more of anger and hurt. And then another level of fear and guilt. But here's the thing. These are the kind of things that we create by trying to control our eating. So quite often, more often than not, after we eat something that we didn't like, and say we ate it initially because, we weren't feeling very good about ourselves, we wanted something to make us feel better, but then when we condemn ourselves for eating it afterwards, then we have guilt or sadness, or we're hurt and we've disappointed ourselves. So you kind of keep that cycle going, of eating to deal with the emotions. But here's the really good news, and I think you'll like this, because when I run people through this exercise, it makes them feel a lot better about what is going on in their system, and makes them trust their body, that their body was actually always trying to do the right thing for them. So how you do this is, I want you to think of your very favorite food, that, like, it can be the ultimate indulgence. So I just really want you to take a moment, and sometimes it's interesting to notice that it's actually really hard for us to figure out what our very favorite one is, because there's lots of good ones out there. But really kind of go back through the years of your life, and track down that, like, ultimate favorite food that's just always made you feel excited to eat, good when you eat it. Um, and then I think you'll find a few different scenarios. So I'll use mine, for example, which was ice cream. And so I would often think about the times, I lived in a small town where everybody would travel to for the ice cream there. They were the biggest cones, and the lineup was always out the door, and there was always tons of flavors. So I always have a lot of memories of just being around as a kid, having lots of ice cream. But then I actually traveled even earlier in my childhood to a day when I actually went to Dairy Queen. This is a very good plug for Dairy Queen, I guess. But the really interesting thing is, I just want you to kind of go back to that moment. Like, remember that food, remember the experience. I'll just give you a second with that. Because the fun part about this, and I'm going to tell you my scenario, because it actually happens for more people than not, but it's not always the case. But mine was actually attached to what might be considered a stressful situation. And it's kind of a funny story now as an adult. But I actually convinced my father, when he just picked up his brand new truck, to take me to Dairy Queen across the street. And as much as it was, well, it was very hard for me to convince him, and it was probably really hard for him to agree to it. He decided, as incentive, that if I could manage to eat the ice cream in the truck without dripping any, or making a mess, or causing any spoilage on the vehicle, that he would give me $1. So it wasn't just about the ice cream. I had the added incentive to try really hard. Now, that doesn't sound that hard, but I think I was around 5. I'm pretty sure it was 40 degrees Celsius outside. I know the window was down. Maybe we had air conditioning. Probably we didn't. And the wind started blowing, the heat and the wind started kind of blowing ice cream around. It was spilling on me. It was spilling on the truck. And I was starting to have a bit of a panic. I was working like the devil to get that ice cream cleaned up. And it was like nothing I tried would solve the problem. It just got worse. The more I tried, the worse it got. And I kept kind of in the corner of my eye, trying to look at my dad and see if he knew what was going on. And nothing was being said. So I couldn't talk, because I was doing everything to try and clean it up as I went along. And the more I tried to lick on this side, it dripped on that side. So I'm sure it would have been a great thing to have on video. But all to say, I really wasn't all that successful at not making a mess. So it was a rather stressful experience for me. Except what happened at the end of the day was, my dad leaned over and handed me $1 and said, "Good job, you did it." Now, I'm pretty sure he knows better. I know better. And at the end, we didn't really say much more than that, but I had such a good feeling of pride that I don't know whether it's because he saw me trying so hard, or really I thought I got away with it. But at the end of the day, it was just such a really good, strong feeling of, I conquered this. Somebody's proud of me, and I managed to do it all. Now, what's really interesting to tie this to is, when I went through this experience, I realized that when I'm stressed, I crave ice cream. And so, further investigation of what's going on, you know what your body is actually doing when it does this? When your body is craving an indulgent type food, It's actually trying to work at balancing your hormones. Now, we know that's a challenge in itself, but really what it's trying to do is give you that feeling that the food gives you when you eat it without guilt. So, when I want to feel good about myself because I'm stressed and not feeling like I'm accomplishing it all, my body knows that I either need a shot of serotonin or probably other feel good hormones that, dopamine and stuff that will actually give me kind of even a boost of confidence and a boost of character. My body recognizes that insufficiency. And so it actually is trying to make me do something that will help me create those hormones. How amazing is that? Like, we really have to take that in for a second, because we give our body such a hard time for not having willpower and not being able to control the system. And, we just can't seem to accomplish what we want. I was trying to eat so healthy and all I want is ice cream. But your body knows that you need to feel good on a regular basis to keep everything in balance. And so when it sees those insufficiencies, but what happens when we do indulge, then we knock ourselves down for doing it. And so it's really important for us to understand what's happening with our system. It's really trying to get you at a balanced level of feeling good and feeding yourself to feel good. And there's really two major things at play there. And so the guilt and shame that you might have after eating an indulgent food is actually undoing everything you are trying to accomplish, but it's also adding stress to your system. So you're just creating an emotional eating cycle that's going to continue. And you've undone all the good work that maybe that one indulgence was trying to give you. So we need to understand that what we're trying to do is actually give our body what we need. It's interesting too, because some people, when they recognize this, we've even seen where people go and take up guitar again that they love playing, or start painting again. In the evenings when they would crave certain things, they felt those cravings fall away. So you can do things to physically make yourself feel better, but they have to be things that you really love. And I think that's when we realize that we can't make changes unless we're making changes with things that we love. Because when they're hard, when we don't really like them, when we find them stressful to do, our body is always going to work to react to undo those, because it's going to cause too much of an imbalance. It's going to cause an increase in stress hormones. It's going to cause your body to not operate efficiently with the food it absorbs and digests and all those kind of things. And so it's always going to work to reject a system, a change, a diet, a plan that incorporates things that we don't love. It always has to incorporate things we do love. Now, one of the best pieces of advice I ever heard was that just to make a list on your fridge of the things you love. Most people find this easiest when you do it with snacks, because that seems to be sort of our toughest thing. When we take the time to eat a meal that we love, we can tend to create a healthier one and sort of enjoy the process and enjoy eating it. But it seems to be snacks that really get people. And so I highly recommend a list that kind of hits you right off the bat. But it has to be snacks you love. They aren't alternatives, just healthy alternatives. They won't work the way you're trying to get them to do. But another thing you can do here that works really successfully from a biological to a very emotional level is you can change this by association. So the best thing to investigate here is, why is it that I want this ice cream or cake or chocolate or candy or whatever it is? Why is it that I want it? What is it giving me? Where does it come from? Do the exercise that we just did, but then investigate it a little further to really understand what it is your body is looking for. And then you can try to find a healthy alternative. Now, again, you can't say no cake, because that's not going to work, but you can change the association in your body. So for example, say it's ice cream, and maybe oranges or apples are sweet enough that I think they might work as a substitute. But you can't completely substitute it because this process doesn't work by eliminating the other one. It works more in a transition, evolutionary type mode. So what you do is you go, I really want some ice cream, but you know what? First, I'm going to have an apple or some oranges or something, and then I'm going to still give myself permission to have some ice cream. So what you've done there is you have eliminated all the sources that could undo what you're trying to do. So if you just had the apples and oranges and then still craved the ice cream and then had it, now you've created sort of a guilt, shame, stressful kind of reaction afterwards. And so you still allow yourself to have the indulgence. But then what you have also created there is now your body will start to go, oh, I want to feel good. I want that kind of sweet sort of feel good thing. And once in a while, it may actually crave an apple or an orange. But we don't crave apples and oranges like we do other things because we don't associate that feel good with them anymore. And we always think of them as, oh, healthy, and I have to eat them. And so we've taken away all the potential feel good that could be associated with it. So what I think you need to realize is that indulgences are trying to help your body. And we've had them for so long and we've tried to knock them down for so long. We've taken any of the good away from them, but that we can work with them now because it creates a better understanding of ourselves. It creates a better understanding of what our body might actually be looking for. And then we can give it both. We can give it the physical food that it really needs, and then we can give it the indulgence, which gives it kind of the emotional trigger. Now, maybe you only eat half of the cake, and maybe over time, you really don't want a lot of cake. But the one thing you can never do is just say no, never, because you always want to have the ability for your body to have that indulgence because of what it's trying to give you. Now, you can find lots of replacements and they can work really well. But when that craving comes up and you've done everything else, the best bet then to do is make a plan for when it will be. So a treat should be a treat. It always should be a treat. And so maybe it's something you decide to do on the weekend, but you always have to remember that even if you plan it, you're going to go and you're going to enjoy it. You have to make sure that you literally enjoy every part of it and make sure that there's no shame and guilt associated with it, because not only will you have undone what it's trying to do, it will continue to crave it even more because it lost all its ability to give you the feel-good feeling that it wanted to give you. So it's really important that if you're going to go there and you're going to do it, that it's something that you feel good about all the way around. But at the end of the day, you're still trying to figure out what it is that your body wants to get or what it is your body needs. And a lot of times I think people don't realize too is that our body creates enzymes, and these enzymes help break down our food. And the more it does, and the better they are, and the better they work, then those enzymes break it down so well that we get the most of the vitamins and minerals out of them. Our body's able to absorb them more. So when you have the stress factor, obviously that isn't helping efficiently. But also when you don't have the live foods, and when you consistently don't have the live raw foods, those are the ones that have the enzymes. They're the ones you want to make sure that you're always giving your body so that it always has multitude of enzymes to do what it's trying to do. And even more so that when you're going to go eat the cake, you want to have fed it as many enzymes as possible, because there's nothing in the cooked or refined foods for it to help it bring it down. So it's relying only on the enzymes in your body. And quite often there's not enough to do what it's trying to do. So even eating better foods before you have a less desirable food, eating raw foods before you have cooked foods later on, all of those will help with the foods that you think or perceive as least healthy. And then you can enjoy them a little more, as well as your body can enjoy them a little more, because they're going to get everything they need out of it. So there's a lot that can happen there. And the other factor that's really hard to do, I'm going to say for most people, it's really hard to do. If you already don't have sort of a stress management practice in place daily, then this one's really hard too. But distracted eating is the least beneficial to all the systems in your body. So by eating in front of the TV, by eating quickly, by eating on the go, what you're doing, so not only are you not are you adding to your stress hormones, you now have not given your body any signals that I'm eating and you need to release the hormones to help in digestion. So one of the better practices where you can almost incorporate your stress management time that you're going to do daily, incorporate it too with your eating time. So eating needs to be food prep that you take the time to do as well as you can do. And obviously, I know we're all very challenged with time when it comes to stuff like that. But at a minimum, when you eat your food, sit down and really take the time and focus on the food that's going on there. That's the best way to send your body the signals that it's got food coming in, there's some work to do here, and we need to start the release of digestive hormones that we get the most out of it. And interestingly enough, they've proven that those hormones are released when we're the most relaxed. So obviously that supports the whole idea that the more stressed you are, the less effective your digestion is going to be. But in addition to that, when we talk about stressful or emotional eating, that's also why I believe we used to have the practice of grace, because gratitude is the highest vibrating emotion, meaning that emotions like gratitude, appreciation, love, kindness, all those really strong feel good emotions give the frequency and vibration, energy vibration through our body that boosts our immune system the highest. It makes our digestive system the most effective. But even more importantly, it's what feeds our metabolism. So I don't think it's by mistake that we had a practice of saying grace or appreciating or blessing or being grateful for our food before we eat it. Because all of a sudden now you're sending the highest vibration to all your organs, which have to process this. And you're sending signals to all of the hormones to be the most effective through this system. Your nervous system is obviously going to be sending all the best signals because those hormones are released, trying to do the most effective process it can for your food. That's your metabolism. That's where you're going to get an increase and boost your metabolism day after day. You put those two together, the food that feeds it energy and has enzymes and gives it power, but then you put it with the thoughts and the emotions and the feelings that do the same. That's the most impact you can ever have on your metabolism. It doesn't get any better than that. And so that's when you take the time and enjoy your food and really enjoy how it feels at the end of the day. We're all struggling to boost our metabolism, and nobody's telling us that this is what it takes. This is the key. This is what we've been looking for. How that food makes you feel before, during, and after will give you the ticket to how good your metabolism is. So when you're looking to be able to enjoy an indulgence once in a while and not feel guilty, then do it. Because then when you eat the good food and you do it in this way, you're going to take the most of it and you're going to want more of it because it makes you feel good and that's where you want to be. The truth of the matter is we need foods for survival. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But it's not just meant to be a stuff or face kind of survival thing. There's real joy in the good foods and even in the indulgences. But those good foods can give us the whole package to making everything enjoyable and for there to be no guilt or sadness or upset from what we're trying to achieve. But as soon as we label something as bad, we've instantly put ourselves into stress mode, started that vicious cycle, and automatically, even the good foods aren't digested as well as we want. So we have to see it not only for that survival piece, it's a blessing. We're meant to enjoy it. We're meant to love it. And there's a really good exercise you can do here to help run this through your brain, but it will also help you start to understand what your body's looking for and what it needs. And you'll actually start to associate emotions with the food it needs and even see the connection with the good foods that will work in all the ways that you want. So I call it, thank you for those things I believed were bad. And so all you do is start a little list and you title it at the top, thank you for the things I believe were bad. But you can start it with an individual thing, like, thank you for the ice cream that I believed was bad. It gave me. And so it's like a gratitude piece, but you write down all the things. It gave me joy. It made me feel healthy or happy. It, it is a lasting good memory with my dad. It's a memory I have as a kid with all my friends and the small town that I used to live in. It reminds me of sunny summer days and it cooled me down and made my body feel more relaxed. It did all these good things. And then just continue the list. So I'm probably looking for good memories. I might be looking for my body to feel happy and fun again. What other foods make me feel that way? Well, you know what? Oranges really do. I do have the same association with oranges. So oranges are really sweet. They remind me of summer days. They remind me of feeling refreshed. I remember actually, driving to things and I would peel my dad's orange for him, those kind of things. And all of a sudden now you have a great understanding of what your body's looking for. You know something that you should enjoy when you do decide to enjoy it, but then you also have your healthy alternative that's possibly going to give you the same feeling. And more than anything, when you go to eat a food, you're going to think of it as, is this going to give me what I want? What is my body trying to tell me? What am I trying to achieve? And remember, you're always trying to avoid that not such good feeling at the end, because that's going to knock down all your systems and not get you where you want to be. So that's really never where you want to go with this. And so one little piece I skipped on all of this is that just that you have to realize you are working with a system that sometimes is meant to make you fail in this way, but work for them. And what I'm talking about is the marketing and marketing of food and the manipulation of the information. So it sometimes gets very confusing with us. And the thing is, the biggest one, I mean, we could go into many different, factors in the food and how it's marketed today. But the key one, I think that's the toughest for people is the sugar aspect. And that's where we don't realize that the chemical replacements that for a while we all believed were a better alternative were also set up to be 200 times sweeter than regular sugar. And the truth of the matter, sugar alone, regular sugar, your regular table sugar or refined sugar can be known as to be as addictive as cocaine. So you're dealing with a real challenge here. And I know that everybody knows moving to more natural sugars is clearly the better alternative. And even that can be confusing sometimes because now they've turned what once was natural sugars into more of a processed sugar. So you never really know if you're actually buying the best thing or what to buy. Just know that with sugar, it can be an addiction that makes a lot of what we just talked about really hard. So you're dealing with it next level. And I don't want to discourage you because it's probably where we falter the most, but you just have to remember, like our meats are injected with sugar now. Everything's so injected with sugar that food companies have to do it to keep it up. Our palates are just that much sweeter that if they don't, then they're challenged to get you to buy your food because our taste buds are just looking for sweet all the time. So make it a slow, easy process. And there's always alternatives. I know sometimes people I've seen in some diets where they're like, no fruit or less fruit. You have to realize, even if you're in a debate about what's the best or which is the best way to go, if you're dealing with any kind of sugar addiction, which is the majority of the population, fruits are still going to be your best alternative. So it has to be a process where you think of best, better, and sort of the ultimate option. And so if you're trying to move towards more natural sugars, and then you get your sort of natural raw sugars that are right from source, and then you get your actual straight from the fruit, you're always moving to a better option. But just like evolution, just like everything you change, whether it's fitness, whether it's eating, whether it's practices that you do, it has to be slow and gentle and careful over time. because you almost are always trying to trick your body into it. So that's what you need to think about is I'm doing it so slowly and carefully that my body won't even know it's happening. And that's what's going to get you there permanently. It's going to get you to where you want to be so slowly without any relapse, with any backtracking. But it's going to also have your body running efficiently the whole time it's trying to get there because it's never in stress mode. And at the end of the day, no matter what it is you're trying to do, just remember this: what you are telling yourself, how you are speaking to yourself, the feelings and emotions that you're sending through your body will be the greatest depictors of whether you get there. They will be the most important pieces that decide how effectively this works in your system, and they will be the greatest depictor of whether your body wants to keep doing it. And all of those factors, slowly over time, will always, for sure, guarantee your success and get you exactly where you want to be. And so I think that's really where I kind of want to leave all of that with all of you. If there's any questions, please feel free to hit me up. I'm happy to ask anything. I know it's a lot of talking. And I know that there's a lot of this stuff too we can delve into a little more specifically. I kind of tried to give you a quick overview of the concept today. Quick might be the incorrect term, but I tried to give you an overview of the concept today. So a lot of these areas we can go into more detail. So feel free to drop me a line. I will leave all my information in the info below where you can contact me and send me info about what you might be more interested in learning about or areas you want to dive into more deeply. But feel free to just shoot me a question before we head off if you have one. Okay, well, I'm thinking we don't have anything, but I will leave my contact information. So I just want to wish everybody good luck with this. Just remember, at the end of the day, it's all about how kind you are to yourself. So your body is always trying to do what's best for you. And as long as you believe that, you will always find a good reason for why it's doing what it's doing. And you will also always find a good reason to be grateful and thankful for it and what it does. Take care.